Okay, so picking up with the crew, like I said, the ship's called the Argo. We got Hercules. I think this is well after he's completed his 12 labors. Orpheus, our musician, Atalanta, who has her own mythology, her own story rather. Super fast girl. We got the Gemini. Those are the twin brothers of Helen of Troy, although it's weird because Troy hasn't happened yet because Laertes is a young man and he's Odysseus's father, and maybe Hercules hasn't built the walls of Troy yet. I don't know. The timeline's a little sketchy, but who cares? Zetes and Calais are twin brothers also. They are sons of Boreas. He's the north wind, so they have some wind powers. And then just like a ton of other people. Some people that you've heard of from other myths and others that would be new to you for the sake of this. And then up next we've got their quest, right? And there are many, many episodes of things that happen to them on this quest. Episodes like the Lemnian women, the Doliones, Phineus and the Harpies, and these things called the Symplegades. And I'm going to go over these really quickly. So they landed on the island of Lemnos, where the women notoriously smelled really bad. And so I guess like the story they tell is that their husbands all left them. But like the real part of the story is like their husbands left them for other women, and then they murdered their husbands, and I don't know exactly. You're going to watch the video about whether there's truth in a myth, right? There's always some truth. And so the video is going to explore the historical possibility of why there would have been an island where people smelled bad. And it's not just like the women, like perhaps the men on that island would have smelled bad also. Anyway, kind of a fun episode that you'll learn more about in the documentary video. Phineus and the Harpies we'll see in a dramatization movie. Phineus is a blind seer who was punished by the gods for revealing things that he shouldn't have revealed, and so they punish him by having harpies. There's a table of food prepared for him every day when he wakes up, but every time he tries to get some food off this table, harpies, right, which are part bird, part women, will like defile his food and scratch at him, and it's like all kinds of, torturous for Phineus. And the Symplegades are pictured here, where they are, according to the myth, they're these big, tall cliffs that you have to sail between to get into the Black Sea. But it's like a putt-putt golf course. As a ship sails through, they smash together and destroy ships. And the video will also talk a little bit about whether that could have been true or not, which probably doesn't sound very true to you right now. And maybe if the video doesn't, we will go over that possibility as well. All right. So their quest took them from Greece, you can see here, right, up kind of directly to Colchis. But because of stealing the fleece, their return trip is quite interesting and takes them basically all the way around the known world, or at least the maritime part of the known world. They knew about Africa, but I didn't sail into or like go inland. But as all the seas that the Greeks knew, they sort of traversed and will wind up back in Iolcus at the end. I'm gonna skip the Hylas and Hercules episode. When they get to Colchis, why not? Why skip the Hylas and Hercules? Hercules had a companion, maybe like his assistant, the guy who carried his weapons for him. What do you call that? Like a valet. A younger, beautiful man that Hercules was quite fond of. And Hylas is sent at some point to fetch water for everyone. Like they stop the ship somewhere and he's gonna go look for fresh water. And he never comes back. I guess some nymphs kidnapped him because they thought he was beautiful as well. And Hercules is distraught, goes looking for Hylas, never finds him, but Hercules also never comes back because he wants to continue the quest for Hylas. So they lose Hercules at some point on the journey, and Hylas. When they get to Colchis, the king, Aeetes, who cares about his fleece, has a daughter named Medea, who you've heard of from other myths and maybe some unrelated movies, right? And Medea falls in love with Jason, so she wants to help him get the fleece. She's also a sorceress. She's got some magical powers. And so when Aeetes says, I need you to complete some tasks to prove that you deserve this fleece, Medea's going to be able to use some of her powers to help him with these tasks, right? And the tasks are always designed to kill the hero, but somehow the hero survives. So the first task is a fire-breathing bull that Jason has to fight, and Medea helps him there. And then once he kills the bull, he has to or not kills the bull, tames the bull. He has to sew some dragon teeth, not so like stitching, but like into a field, like, you know, plow a field, probably with the bull, and then sew dragon teeth into the field. And those dragon teeth grow into men-ish. And then he has to fight those dudes that grow up out of the ground made from dragon's teeth. And then the fleece itself is guarded by a dragon, so he's got to kill or get around that dragon somehow in order to get the fleece. And when he does, oh yeah, I don't want to. So he does eventually complete all of these tasks with Medea's help, and then, he's, you know, they still don't want him to take the fleece, even though he's completed the task. So in a way, he's still stealing the fleece and escaping from Colchis, and Medea goes with him. Of course, right? She's fallen in love with him, and she's kind of like betrayed her family a little bit by helping him out along the way. And so it turns out that like she's a little bit less stable than Jason was prepared for, because in order to distract her father's guards, like his, you know, his military that he sent out to go catch Jason and catch Medea and bring the fleece back, you know, they've got a little bit of a head start in their boat, but somehow she'd taken her younger brother, Apsyrtus, with them, and she decides to kill him and cut him into pieces and drop him, like, off the boat so that those guards will be distracted by collecting pieces of Apsyrtus, the prince, to bring him back to Aeetes, which is crazy, but she does it. Kills her brother in order to run off with Jason. And also on the way back, they encounter some sirens, like every good epic, and Orpheus helps out with his music, very similar to the Odyssey. They also encounter some bronze giant who has a name, it's Talos, and they're going to figure out a way to stop him. I think one of the movies covers it, so I'll save that detail for how they defeat the bronze giant. And then they make it back to Colchis, and like, he doesn't get his kingdom back, you know, like he's not able to defeat Peleus immediately. But Medea is able to help out. So she talks to Peleus's daughters, and she's like, hey, you know how your dad's getting old and he can't be king forever? And they're like, yeah, it's kind of lame. Medea says, here's how you can give him eternal youth. What you do is you kill your father and you chop him up into pieces and you cook him in these herbs and seasonings and this magical potion that I can give you the recipe for. And when you stir him all up in there, then he will come back to life and he will be youthful and live eternally and he can rule forever. And the daughters are like, that sounds reasonable. So they do that, but you know, that's not the case, right? They're just killing their father and he's not going to come back to life. So, so that happens. But then Peleus' son is like, hey, you still killed my father, you know, by proxy. You had my sisters kill my father. So get out of here. Peleus' family is just too powerful for Jason and Medea to defeat. So they basically like get exiled from Iolcus, and they settle in Corinth, and they just kind of like live their life in Corinth. And eventually, like, you know, things happen, and Jason falls in love with another woman. I don't know if he falls in love. For political reasons, he gets engaged to another woman who maybe like has some sway in Corinth, and she's a princess or something. And Jason's like, well, that'll at least get me back into a royal family of some sort. And he's like, sorry, Medea, but like this will be good for us if I marry this princess or what have you. And Medea's like, okay, I'm gonna give her a gift for your wedding. And the gift is like this beautiful robe gown thing, but there's like some magic potion on the inside of it that when she puts it on, it starts just burning her flesh, burning her alive. And her dad tries to save her, you know, father of the bride tries to like get this gown off of his daughter. And he also burns trying to save her. So there goes that family. Oh yeah, right. And then Medea is still super mad at Jason for betraying her like this. So she kills the children that she and Jason had created. She just kills her own children as a way of punishing Jason. And it does, right? Like he doesn't kill family members in the way she does. So he is distraught at the fact that she killed his children. And then he kind of just lives his life in sadness and obscurity, right? He wasn't able to marry into a royal family, and his now ex-wife, I guess, killed his children. And eventually he just like kicks up on the beach leaning against his broken old ship, and a piece of the ship, like not the mast, but like part of the bow falls, and it's got like a special talking timber. Like the bow is made from a special wood from these talking trees, so it can, I don't know, tell him things. But like I think it's that bow, that talking wood, that falls on him, and he just dies quite uninterestingly. I mean, interestingly, it's like I guess, you know, the ship that brought him on this great adventure, and you'd think he would have died on that adventure. He doesn't, but it's still because of the ship that he ends up dying, which is pretty neat. So really underwhelming and tragic end for a guy who went on such a great adventure. If you're wondering what happened to the fleece, you should be. So that'll be your cliffhanger. But next you're going to watch this documentary on, is there any truth to this golden fleece and to these Lemnian women and to these clashing rocks and all of this stuff, and maybe an Iron Man, who knows. So you'll watch that on Edpuzzle, and then you'll continue the rest of the packet on paper. Gratias and walete.